Hello, everyone, and welcome to Right Here, Right Queer podcast, a podcast about queer books and stuff. I am one of your hosts. My name is Carolina Cruz. I'm your resident horror ambassador, as it were, and I am here today with O F Cieri, author of Backmask and other stuff.
Ooh, hello.
I am so excited to talk about this book. I absolutely devoured it, so I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk to the source about it.
You gave me a meme. I haven't gotten a meme yet. I was so stoked to get a meme.
It came to me like one of Hush's visions.
Yes.
So, before we launch too far into it, do you want to, in your own words, tell the audience what Backmask is?
Yeah, so I'm O F Cieri. I write genre fiction pretty broadly, usually on the darker side. Backmask is a historical fiction novel about the invention of backmasking, which was a conspiracy theory that started in the early 70s about secret messages hidden in pop music to control the minds of the youth. And so Backmask is the supposed history of that, beginning with the music producer who developed it.
Fantastic. So that's a really interesting concept. You have like a lot of inspirations and a lot of things coming together. You have behavioral science, you have music history, you have some queer history that comes up, obviously conspiracy theories and such. How did all of this come together? What made you want to write this book about all of these things?
So I was doing my own research into the Satanic Panic, and I was also like having some nostalgic like rediscovery of the 1960s and finding a lot of parallels specifically with the way that goth developed in the 1990s. I don't know if anybody remembers that there was actually a really big nostalgia resurgence of 1960s styled stuff in the 1990s, and that ended up getting woven into a lot of goths, like art and music and everything. While I was doing all that, once again, it was a lot of like converging, just percolating interests that were kind of popping around me. I was trying to think of a way to write a kind of daytime horror, a kind of sapphic noir, like classic noir story, classic thriller. And I was listening to a lot of Last Podcast on the Left, and I came on this episode where they do, it's not even a full episode about this historical figure, but they did a brief aside on the story of Joe Meek, who is one of the pioneers of electronic music. He had the first electronic song, fully electronic song, to be on a top 100 Billboard hit, and he had a very tragic story. He had a very tragic end. He also believed that he could see the future. And so I, out of respect for the actual historical figure, I did not want to make a biography of him. I just wanted to write a fictional story based off of the vibes that I was already like working with in order to tell a fun story.
Yeah, I can see you being hesitant to, mess with the actual historical figure itself, but it gives you a license to do a lot of fun things in a kind of fictional version of that story.
I had a fun interaction. So I was talking to a friend of mine about how like there is always somebody who's a big fan of whatever it is you're writing about, and I did actually get the chance to contact somebody. Well, just like I was talking about how the story was inspired by Joe Meek, and a Joe Meek like major stan reached out and was like, "Okay, did you treat my boy right?" And I was like, "I treated him right by not claiming any authority over him whatsoever." This is a fictional character lightly inspired by his life. But I'm glad that they're still out there, the stands, supporting the Telstar man.
Yeah, no, that's an ongoing fear of mine as an author, is that someone who's an expert in the thing that I have chosen to write will be upset over my misrepresentation of said thing. So
yeah, big same.
Totally get that. But you did have to do a lot of research, I'm sure. What was the most like interesting thing that came up while you were doing research for this project?
A lot of really cool stuff came up. So a lot of the research that I did was I did a lot of period reading. So I was calling this a pulp novel, and I did a lot of pulp novel research. And so I was reading a lot of books that were written in that milieu. A lot of this is kind of like, it's a very close parallel to what we would call indie publishing these days. It was all printed on cheap stock, and that's kind of why we call it pulp novels, but it was all small independent presses who were willing to take a lot more risks on what they were producing. The thing is that they had much better distribution than a lot of indie presses. I know that Amazon is like great, but like pulp novels could be sold on a newsstand. You can't really get that kind of distribution these days. So there were all kinds of people who were publishing in these, like notably one of the greatest success stories, William Burroughs's first novel, Junkie, which was a double feature with this other book. And what they were trying to do was kind of wiggle into this niche of like true crime, shock, schlock, essentially. It was going to be two novels, one of them from the junkie's perspective, and then the other one was going to be from like a cop or FBI perspective. And obviously, William Burroughs wrote circles around the book that he was a double feature on. So his novel was elevated above that. But on top of that, we have Dashiell Hammett. It's not Dashiell Hammett that I'm thinking of, though, who created the Nick and Nora Charles adventures. And everyone else who ever wrote a character that Humphrey Bogart played was also in this milieu of publishing on incredibly cheap paper stock, with independent publishing skyrocketing to fame. I guess if we're going to compare it to independent publishing, I guess in terms of sheer distribution, we could call these the Brandon Sandersons of their time.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing, actually, the thing that was most surprising to me was I was doing some research, very light, because I didn't want to get too much into what the teeny bopper musicians are actually doing. But I did do some research into, like, the logistics of what happened to a music act in the 1960s, just as the radio is becoming a youth culture thing and not just a sort of center of the family, like, you know, what everybody listens to around the living room. All of a sudden, kids have their own individual radios and they can listen to their own individual stations. And parallel to the internet, parents don't know what their kids are listening to. You know, they could be listening to all kinds of things and the parents won't even understand it because of all of the codes that are involved. But for the musicians, there was not a good strategy for how to send them out into the world. And it was operating on this very basic and archaic system of you give them an advance. Literally a huge stack of money. This is what the recording company gives you. Maybe, if you're lucky, you get a couple of checks that you can divide out so that you can have that sort of buffer in between just literally holding your entire paycheck in your hand. You put the kids on a bus, you put them on the tour bus, and then you send them out. And once again, the highways are a brand new invention. So the kids are a bunch of 16-year-olds are getting on a bus, and they are just driving for the first time in American history across America and playing in these gigs and using their fat wad of cash to pay for hotel rooms, to pay for food, to pay for gas. And so you see all of these stories from this time period of these kids getting robbed. So they got really used to carrying guns on them. And this was just a normal part, genuinely a normal part of the music industry. Because the record the record execs, once again, the highway is a new technology. They don't really know what to do about the fact that the kids are calling them up and saying, sorry, we lost our huge advance because somebody came into the tour bus and stole the equipment, they stole our costumes, and they stole all of our money. So they don't really have answers. It took a long time for them to figure out to pay for security and put the security on the bus with the kids. And so they're telling the kids, pay for your own security. And the kids are knowing that the advance is going to be what is going to pay for their living expenses after the tour. So they're being cheap, and they're just buying a gun, and they're sleeping in the tour van with their gun. So once again, like, the gun as a music industry thing was pretty prevalent.
That's so interesting, yeah.
That was the thing that surprised me the most.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that, but it makes a lot of sense. I love, like, a cause and effect like that. I personally always enjoy writing about things that I already know a little bit about and finding an excuse to, like, worm something in that I have found interesting for a long time. Do you have anything in Backmask that you were excited, that you already knew that you were excited to include?
Definitely the behavioral science stuff. So I mentioned that, like, you know, kind of the panic around the radio was because the radio was no longer this hearth that sat in the middle of the house and was now something private that people did on their own. And also recording equipment was making these huge leaps and bounds after World War II, and we had all of these advances in communication technology in order to try to make communication spanning literally the entire globe work better. So we have advanced communication, advanced recording. The internet is in its absolute absolute infancy. And so there's a lot of panic about what this technology is going to mean, what it's going to do to your brain. And then behavioral sciences was also, once again, making these huge strides because of World War II. And I actually lifted a bunch from Pynchon, which is kind of, a little bit of a snobby pull. But I did actually try to read Gravity's Rainbow, and the behavioral sciences is a huge portion of that book, so I did actually lift a whole bunch of it from Pynchon. I did also sit down and read Timothy Leary's autobiography, Flashbacks, and so got it straight from a primary source. I actually quoted a reference that he used a couple of times. I list a couple of his coworkers, a couple of his insider baseball referrals in order to give the behavioral science aspect of the book as much weight and gravity as possible.
Yeah, 100%. No, that stuff was very interesting. As someone who kind of has a passing interest in that, I like seeing how it was addressed by the characters and kind of them kind of scheming with all of this.
Yes.
This book is all schemes all the time.
It is all schemes all the time. Everybody is traumatized all the time from World War II. Nobody's going to talk about it. It's the 1960s. Everyone's just going to drink, pass out, and wake up in bed naked next to somebody they didn't recognize. That's the 60s. We've invented behavioral science. We are almost at the point of discovering trauma.
So close.
So close, and yet so far.
If only, rest, this is kind of spoilers, but rest in peace. Spoiler redacted. Therapy, and couldn't have saved you.
No. He would have gone to a therapist and they would have said, uncontrollable thoughts of having sex with men. Here is your estrogen. It's going to be used to castrate you. And he would have said, oh my God, I have to flee the country.
Oh, my poor boy.
I know.
I have such a deep soft spot for him. This isn't necessarily in my notes, but it is something that I have been thinking about ever since I read it. I deeply appreciated the ska inclusion and the acknowledgement of its history in the Caribbean. That's something that personally I have a lot of passion for. So it was really fun to get that. I had not expected it going in. And then I was like, oh, hey, period accurate ska mention.
You know what? If we're going to talk about things that I already knew about and was excited to include in the book, it did kind of slip my mind that, that is kind of not mainstream acknowledgement.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was big into skinhead music when I was a kid, so I was obviously oh yeah, Sima Reps, this ska started in the 1960s. It was just part of the wave of, the music industry forming, was people were just trying to make music once again. Radios are everywhere. They have a lot more access to the international market. And so people are cool, we are going to record music. We're going to press it ourselves. And we're going to try to make some money off of this. And I'm sure it was very tough for them to make any money, but they did create this huge impact on the world.
Yeah, and now I'm getting all ska-pilled on the pod. But a lot of people think of Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and 90s, 2000s. I don't think it's as common knowledge to think about how far back it went and the different movements it's been through. So again, was just tickled pink to see that come up in this book.
Yay! Oh my God, I forgot. I didn't even think about that. I was just yes, and there's a ska band.
And obviously there's a ska band, yeah. That actually leads me to another question that's not in my notes, but that I've been dying to ask, which is, so when I was reading the book, throughout the entire thing, I knew I could probably just skip ahead and figure out what band Hush was seeing in his visions. But what made you decide on the band that it is? I'm not going to spoil it because I think of it as a spoiler. I had so much fun listening to him rant about the things he was seeing, and I was off both times in both directions on my guesses.
So part of it is a little inside bait and switch. Part of it is a joke. I did not want to make it a huge platinum goth number that he was trying to invent.
No.
Although that might have been funny if I tried to get him to invent Bela Lugosi is dead.
That would have been crazy.
Yeah. That would have been funny. But also, I was I don't actually want it to be a major hit. I want him to get a B track.
Right.
And to him be oh my God, this is the future.
That's so funny. That's so real.
But the other thing was I actually wanted the song to be something that would be legible to him as a hit. So, like, Bela Lugosi is Dead, I was a tiny bit worried. And I don't know if this is true because he's listening to, like, a couple other little Easter eggs is that he's an adult who's been in the music industry for, like, decades. So he actually is listening to some kind of avant-garde stuff. But I didn't want it to be too abstract, too removed from what he would recognize as a hit.
Yeah.
And I was worried that Bela Lugosi is Dead, or like the other one that I was actually thinking about making the song was a Joy Division song, Disorder.
Oh, I love that song.
But once again, hearkening back to like the thoughts that I was percolating around when I was first writing this book, where I wanted to talk about the parallels between the 1960s and the 1990s specifically and kind of draw that thread together, was that there is this ska element, and specifically there's a dub element in goth music, going back to Bela Lugosi is Dead. That is just a dub song. It's just about Bela Lugosi rather than like fucking and drinking rum.
Right, yes.
So I wanted it to have the ska element. I wanted it to be legible to a character who is a music producer in the very early 1960s as something that people would listen to in his time period. And I also didn't want it to be a major hit, so I made it
No, yeah.
She's in Parties, and I figured that would fit the bill.
I think you nailed it because, again, the whole time through, I was like, I want to know what song it is. I want to know what band it is. It's like, there were so many elements that I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit here. My immediate guess in the fishnet shirts conversation, I am in my own head here, and I am God's dumbest Nine Inch Nails fan. I was like, oh... I was like, he's seeing Trent Reznor in his dreams. Who doesn't?
That'd be so good. Oh my god. If Hush like saw the music video for Closer, he would never come back. They would need to hook him up to they would need to hook him up to something in a hospital somewhere. He's in a coma for life. He's not coming back.
Rest in peace. I hope it's a good dream that you get to live in now.
It's just him and Trent Reznor spinning in that factory forever.
One of my favorite images. Whenever I say I'm spinning him around in my head, like my Blorbo around in my head, like he's in a microwave, I'm always thinking of that specific moment in the Closer music video. My other guess in the opposite direction was Misfits. I thought I was more on the right track with that, but that was still a little bit off, a little bit early even. So when it was Bauhaus, I was like, I'm so dumb. Why didn't... What was I thinking?
I was not telling you. The answer is I did not tell you.
Right, but I thought I was smart. I thought I was on it.
I love the guesses, though.
I loved being able to guess. It was such a fun little trail of breadcrumbs that felt so real. I loved getting to hear him try and, like, explain She's in Parties, like the back rooms, yes. Like, to people who had never heard it before.
Yes. And to be fair, that was the other, like, my other favorite thing was like, okay, I'm based on Joe Meek, so I don't actually have any technical musical knowledge. Like, the whole point of this story is that Hush has been in the music industry. He doesn't know how to read music or play an instrument. He can just hum a tune. Not very well. And he's trying to describe what She's in Parties sounds like based on just the way it sounds in his dreams.
I was a big fan of when Blaine and Chill get to hear it themselves and they immediately are like, Their immediate reaction is, oh, I get it now. Yeah, no, this all makes sense. I loved Chill's specific line about, like, this isn't groundbreaking. But then again, I guess he never actually claimed it was groundbreaking. In fact, he may have emphasized multiple times that it wasn't.
Yes. Once again, I cannot stress this enough. Two music industry professionals listened to the song and said, okay, this is not a #1 hit, but it's not on the radio right now. So if we get on this instantly, we're going to be in on the ground floor of whatever the fuck this sound is.
If only things hadn't gone the way they had.
If only Hush knew how to write musical notation.
You know, I love how rather than decide to learn how to do that, he decided to just kind of madly explain it over and over again. Like, he said, you cannot teach this old dog new tricks. I'm just gonna scream at you.
Yes, he did. And I stand by my characterization of him.
And I wouldn't want him any other way. I could gush about this book for ages, but I do think we should probably start wrapping up. So is there anything else you want people to know about Backmask if they're listening and they think that they might want to give it a shot?
You know, I think the most important thing is that it is actually going to get an audiobook release from Haruspex Audio in July. So now is your time to pre-order it from haruspex-audio.com. You can find them on Instagram and Blue Sky and Threads. It's going to be recorded by Rain Corbin, who does a lot of other queer audiobooks, has been for their entire career, and they are getting their new audiobook production company started. So regardless of how you feel about Backmask, whether you love it or hate it, there are a lot of really good books in the catalog for the first season. Porter, what would you call an audiobook catalog when it's first being released?
You know, I don't know. The first wave?
Yeah, the first wave.
Yeah, first wave of releases from Haruspex Audio will include Backmask, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I've gotten to hear a little snip. I am super stoked that Rain is taking the correct direction, which is to do all of the actual, like, descriptive narrations, not the character voices, in a 1950s radio announcer voice. That is obviously the correct creative decision.
That's so... I'm gonna have to listen to it just to experience it all over again.
I really can't wait to hear their interpretation of Hush. I'm really excited.
I'm genuinely so stoked. I loved all of these characters so much. Again, I could gush about it. I will when I eventually write my review, but for now, we will have to go, I think.
Yeah, reviews.
Yay. I love sitting down and putting my thoughts together. It's my favorite thing.
Yes. Said the author.
Right? In the meantime, where can everyone find you? We've already told them where to find Haruspex Audio, but what about you yourself?
I am on most webbed sites. I have my own webbed site. It's ofcieri.com. And then I'm ossuary, that is the way my name sounds, but not the way it's spelled, OSSUARY, on Instagram and Blue Sky. And I'm still on X. It's mostly just to make sure that no chud steals my username. And
yep, gotta camp on that username. Mm-hmm. Feel it?
Yeah. And I'm also on Threads.
Sounds good. All right. As for the podcast, you can find us at Right Here, Right Queer Pod on Instagram. You can find me, Nina, at Nina Wolverina on Instagram. I think that's, and yeah, I'll in Blue Sky if you really want to. And until next time, thank you guys so much for listening.